Hey, I'm Cytrix, and if you missed my last video, I made a deck when Phyrexia All Will Be One released on Arena, based on the new Jason Vraska, and I had so much fun making that video that I'm making another one. And just like last time, Decklist will be in the description. The match starts, and we start off with honestly not a very fun hand for our opponent, but only 2 mana is a bit scary. We keep it because mulliganing on the draw is honestly even more scary. So our opponent plays a mountain and a Monastery Swiftspear, a 1/2 creature with haste and prowess, which means it can tap and attack immediately and not to deal with summoning sickness like most other creatures. And whenever our opponent plays a non-creature spell, it gets +1/+1 until the end of turn. So they swing at us for 1. On our turn 1, we draw a Battlefly Swarm, a 1/1 flying creature with the activated ability that for 1 black mana, Battlefly Swarm gains Death Touch until end of turn. And we could play this with the swamp we have, but without the Death Touch it doesn't really do much for us on board, so we play our tap land and just gain 1 life. Turn 2, our opponent plays a Voldaren Epicure, a 1/1 that deals 1 damage and creates a blood token when it enters the battlefield. It looks like our opponent kept a hand with 1 land, which makes me feel a lot better about keeping a hand with 2. On our turn, we play the swamp from earlier and the Battlefly Swarm, then pass ready to Fading Hope a creature. Our opponent finds their second land and plays an End the Festivities, a 1 mana sorcery that deals 1 damage to each opponent and each creature and planeswalker they control. So that takes out our Battlefly and pumps their Swiftspear for 1. I could Fading Hope this Swiftspear now, but with the 1 mana they have, they could just recast it, and since it has haste, they could just attack us anyway. So I wait for combat, they crack their blood token, and now they don't have enough to cast the Swiftspear this turn, so I return it to their hand and keep a land on top. On our turn, we draw that land and pay 2 life to play our Jace for its completed cost and give their Epicure -3/-0. Our opponent simply replays the Swiftspear and attacks Jace for 1. On our turn, since the Swiftspear can actually increase in power, much easier than the Epicure, I lower the Swiftspear's power and pass the turn since all my plays can be done on my opponent's turn. Speaking of which, our opponent plays a Kumano Faces Kazan, a saga that when it enters the battlefield it deals 1 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker they control. It has some other effects but they don't matter since we negate it. It also triggers the prowess, but they need to trigger it 2 more times to overcome our Jace, which I'm pretty confident they can't do with 1 more mana. They attack Jace for 1 with the Epicure and pass turn. Still missing our lands here on turn 5, but I draw here might help us. It's a bit of a risk, but we tap out and play Phyrexia Arena to draw extra cards and weaken their Swiftspear again. Our opponent also taps out and plays an Electrostatic Infantry, a 1/2 with Trample, and whenever they play a non-creature spell, it gets a +1/+1 counter, and keeps swinging at Jace. Phyrexia Arena already paying us dividends here, as we get 2 lands and one of them being untapped, allows us to play our Shieldred, which I'm mostly confident will survive, because unless our opponent has 2 Lightning Bolts in hand they just decided not to play. 2 red mana typically can't do 5 damage. Turn 7, our opponent plays a 3rd mountain and is hesitating whether to attack here, but they finally decide to attack with the Electrostatic Infantry towards the Jace, and I just let it happen to protect Shieldred. Then after combat they play Squeed, Dubious Monarch, and pass turn. On our turn, we draw a Morbid Opportunist, a Swamp, and gain 3 life. We play that Swamp in the Opportunist and hold up 2 mana to play either Fairy Vandal or Essence Scatter. Our opponent attacks with the Infantry and Squee, and creates a 1/1 Goblin tapped and attacking Jace as well. So we flash in the Vandal and block each creature, because with Cruelty of Gix we can get any card back from a graveyard back to the battlefield. And like I thought, our opponent cast a Braid, dealing 3 damage to Shieldred and hitting her for 2, so I draw a card off of Opportunist. and draw 2 off of Phyrexian Arena, putting a +1/+1 counter on the Vandal. Then we play an island in Font of Progress, weaken the infantry, and play Cruelty of Geeks, choosing to leave it with 1 page counter, and discarding their Thundering Raiju, because that's an easy way for constant damage once he gets that 4th land. Our opponent finds that 4th land, and I'm really glad I made him discard that Raiju now. They play Atsushi, the Blazing Sky, a 4/4 flying trample with a trigger when it dies that lets him choose between getting 2 more cards to play or 3 treasures. Draw 2 more cards with Phyrexian Arena, and trigger the 2nd chapter of Gix, and consider what card to tutor for. But eventually just decide to get Vraska for theming purposes. Play the tap land and gain 1 life and tap out to play Vraska. Use her +1 to draw a card and proliferate, making our Vandal 4/5, now bigger than their flyer, and add another oil counter to Font of Progress, a loyalty counter on each of the planeswalkers, and a page counter on Cruelty of Gix, which means now I can put Shieldred back on the field. Opponent deals with Shieldred by tapping out and playing an Unleashed Shell, dealing 5 damage to Shieldred and 2 to me. They see I'm at single digits here and swing everything at me, including the infantry, which has 0 power. Okay. I block the Atsushi with my Vandal, and the Epicure with the Opportunist, taking 2 down to 7, drawing a card with the Opportunist. Opponent chooses to exile the top 2 cards of the library to possibly play next turn. Luckily I can also see what those cards are, and that players can't gain life is scary when Phyrexian Arena is dealing 1 to me each turn guaranteed. When it gets to my turn, I play a Swamp, weaken their infantry, and make a risky play by drawing off of Vraska and kill the Swiftspear main phase to not discard a card, forgetting I'll draw a card from the Opportunist anyways, so I just discard a land. Opponent plays another Kumano, and that 1 damage it does is really scary when I'm down to 5 life. Then they attempt to recast Squee from their graveyard, so I counter it with Essence Scatter, and apparently that was our opponent's last hope as I scoop it up right there. So let's talk about that match. We both kept very risky hands in terms of our mana base, and honestly, even though it almost killed me, I believe that the card draw from Phyrexian Arena was the main game changer for me, allowing me to dig deeper into my deck and fix my mana. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more like it, make sure to subscribe as I'd really appreciate it, and I'll be sure to put out more videos like this. If you want to see these be recorded live, I also have a Twitch channel I'll link in the description. I stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time. Citrix out.